So that way we don't have all the pre-banter for 15 minutes in the uploads.
Tiffany eating buffalo dip. Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah. So just, yeah, welcome Clint, welcome John, welcome Carol, welcome Larry. Thanks for joining us. Give it another minute and then I think we can get started. While we're doing that, I'm just gonna share my screen. All right, can everybody see the screen okay?
Looks great.
Yep, looks great.
Perfect.
I'll keep my video off then.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, well, just in for timing, we'll get started because I don't want to have to cut the demos and the good stuff short. So let's start. And then as people join in, we can catch them up if need be, or else they can follow along whatever's left. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name's Brian Hack. I'm the principal and founder of the BHC Group. We started in April of 2016. So next week will be our 8th year, starting our 8th year in business. So really excited for that. Our team is divided between Winnipeg and Vancouver. So mostly myself in Winnipeg. And we're growing the Winnipeg practice with GP customers. And then Vancouver, where most of the team is, and a lot of our existing customers, and still gaining new traction with new customers in Vancouver and in BC. So our goal is to enable our clients to achieve all their business and technology objectives, essentially from one place. We've got a very good, dynamic, experienced team with lots of knowledge, decades of knowledge, that we can really help add or add value to our customers in the areas that they're looking for. So here's some of the friendly faces at the BHC Group. A lot of the people I've worked with in the past over the last 20 years, and others more recently, but a great team, very knowledgeable in all areas of not only Dynamics GP, but Sage Intacct, as well as ERP systems in general. And our philosophy is to help our customers stay on track by leveraging our teamwork, our reliability, our accountability, our communication, and our knowledge. So we feel that this is sort of drives every project that we do, and we try and hit all of these topics as we move through any project. So what we do, as I mentioned, Microsoft Dynamics GP is a product service line that we support, from full end-to-end implementations to leveraging it further, looking at third-party ISV products to enhance the value, for upgrading, server migrations, that kind of thing. How can we help you with your GP is essentially what we're here to ask. ERP upgrade and optimization. So exactly what I just said, we leverage what you own and you're paying for it anyway, so why not use it? For our ERP consulting, so we can add additional services around ERP systems in general to help you with your questions or anything you need to enhance that module or that function. And data management. So if you're looking for data reporting, integrations, migration, helping cleanse the data, we're your team. We've got resources that can do that. And especially if you're looking to do that with Dynamics GP, definitely have you covered, and we know the back end of GP inside and out. Business process mapping. So again, helping you understand your processes, how we can make improvements, how we can make you more efficient by documenting those current processes or going straight to future state. We can really add some value in that side of your business. And then ERP evaluation. So if you're saying, hey, we want to move from GP to, say, Business Central or another product, we can look and see how that may work out for you. Or if you want to do a full ERP software selection, we come in with that product agnostic approach where we're not resellers of any ERP systems, and we really help guide our customers through the journey of selecting a new ERP system. And then ERP implementation support. So as you're going to implement new software, your team generally needs a well-rounded group of people who have time and knowledge. And if you don't have those resources, that's where we can provide resources to be part of your team. And then change management, something that often gets overlooked, but we don't like that. This is a big part to implementing success as you go through your new ERP or your new implementation of software. So here's a subset of our customers. So they vary in industries from not-for-profits to mining to wholesale, manufacturing. We've got experience in customers in all different industries that we can offer to existing customers, or experience from those customers to hopefully new customers and grow that. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Tiffany, who's going to talk about Paymerang, and then to Matt for the demo. So over to you, Tiffany. Thank you.
Oh, Brian, thank you. Thanks so much for having us today. We really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and your customers. We have worked with Brian for quite some time, and I'm always impressed with the BH Consulting Group. The resources and services that they provide are invaluable, absolutely. So today what we're going to do is talk about invoice automation, specifically for Dynamics GP. I do have Matt O'Neill on the line with me. He's going to take you all through the interactive demonstration so you can see exactly how invoice automation would work integrated into your Dynamics GP environment. So that whole leverage, use more of that ERP, right? We will also look at some of the misconceptions that we continue to hear about specific to automation, as well as the Dynamics GP community. So Brian will help me out with that one for sure. Right, Brian?
Yeah, you bet.
Good deal. So a little bit about who we are. Paymerang, we've been around for over 25 years. And specifically with integrations to Dynamics for those 25 years. So we have been the document management arm for all of the different Dynamics ERPs for over 25 years. About 20 years ago, we said, hey, let's dive straight into invoice automation. One of the most frequent documents that we would have our GP customers tap us for would be the invoice. And they said, hey, how can we automate this process? So with that being said, we process over 48 million documents per year. And we also are handle payment automation. So kind of the back end element, not necessarily our focus today, but we process over $15 billion in payments per year as well. So you've got a lot of history and a lot of experience when you deal with the Paymerang team. And in terms of that experience, we do have, a US-based support team. So right here, obviously in North America, ensuring that, we're within a time zone that's, relative to you all here to be most responsive to your needs. Last thing I want to highlight here is really our dedication to the customer. We rank right up there with the Apples in terms of our NPS score is at 68. So really proud to ensure that we're always putting the customer first as it relates to how we design our solutions and then also how we interact and help you going forward. All righty. So what we're focused on today is the left-hand side of the screen, and that is the invoice automation. It's a touchless invoice automation process here. So I did mention we do both invoices and payments, but again, we're going to focus on the left-hand side here, where we're going to be able to intelligently extract or ingest your invoice, extract the data, leveraging AI. We read an invoice as a human eye would to extract that data off the invoice, and then we match it directly back to Dynamics GP. We want to validate things such as companies, GLs, to ensure that we can capture the appropriate coding. And then we have configurable workflow to ensure right eyes are on that invoice. And upon final approval, we seamlessly create the transaction directly within your Dynamics GP environment. On this slide, it does highlight both GP and Business Central. If that's on your roadmap, if an ERP evaluation is something that you're looking to do with Brian's support and help, you certainly know that if you leveraged invoice automation for GP, that is something that you could certainly transition with us if you make that shift to Business Central. On the right-hand side there, if you've got an interest or if you have pain points around issuing payments to your vendors, maybe you've been a victim of fraud, if that's of concern, you can certainly tap Brian and we can expand that conversation into the payment automation. But we only have an hour, so we're going to focus on invoices today for sure. Matt, in just a moment, is going to hijack the screen here, and that's a good thing because that means you get to see the product in action. But I do want to highlight that our solution is configurable, very configurable in nature to ensure that it can match what your business processes are. So starting on the left-hand side here, we're able to capture invoices in a myriad of ways, whether you're uploading an invoice from a file on your machine. Most common is we're going to capture that by email, though. Maybe you have an email address set up for your organization, invoices@mydomain.com. We'll set up a forward on that to ensure we can bring your vendor invoices in real time. As we do that, we leverage our artificial intelligence machine to extract that data. But we call it a more intelligent, integrated intelligence here because as we extract the data, we're always matching it back to your Dynamics GP environment. And that means that we can support you guys for both non-purchase order invoices, but as well as PO invoices. So if you're leveraging that purchase order module within Dynamics GP, we'll be able to match against those so you can receive against and seamlessly create those invoices upon approval. So there's some different options that you have in terms of automating that routing. How many people need to see those invoices? Is it based on dollar amount? And we work with you on that implementation cycle to ensure that we can match your business requirements with the application functionality. Ultimately, what we want to do is seamlessly create that transaction in Dynamics GP for you with as little touch as possible. And with that being said, we'll let Matt highlight that for you here today.
Thank you, Tiffany. And
absolutely.
Thank you, everyone, for your interest in what we do. You should be able to see my QuickTag login screen.
Perfectly, Matt.
All right. So today we're going to show Quick Payables, which is our invoice automation made specifically for GP. We've done a ton of these. It's definitely been our leading product for a good number of years. This is the login screen for the web client. One nice thing I want to note is you have unlimited end users. And this is also a document management solution, not only embedded in GP, but also for anybody. So you can give credentials to everybody in your company and they can go paperless. So that's a nice benefit to Quick Payables. But let's go over here and log in. When you log into Quick Payables, you can default the opening screen to whatever your role is in the process. If you're an AP person, you could have Payables Invoice Index. That's where all of the non-PO invoices come in. If you'd prefer to have PO invoices and have that queue, you could set your default to Purchase Enter Match Index or Purchase Shipment Invoice Index, our two-way and three-way match scenarios. We're going to start off in the non-PO invoices here. Over here, you have your tasks. There's a lot of tasks here. This is a demo environment. Normally, our customers have 2 or 3 tasks over here. Up here is a search bar where you can put in keywords, document numbers, and it will bring any document that matches that criteria up. You can also add filters. And if you add a lot of filters, you can set them up as a template if it's something you use often. So really handy. On the document management side, it's basically impossible to lose documents if you know that one piece of information on that document, you can bring it up. You can sort all of these invoices that are in the queue by header. You can also filter here for anything in the queue. And to open up an invoice, you'll come down to one of the line items here and see the pencil. You just click that to open it up. But before we do, I want to point something out that this is an invoice here that came in via email or scanned in, or I think there's about 12 different ways they can come in. You'll notice that there's already a ton of information here. We already have the vendor name, the document date, the document type, document number, purchases amount, the vendor phone number is here, and the vendor ID is here. Vendor ID is an interesting piece of information because it's not on an incoming invoice. And that's where the intelligence, our AI and machine learning kind of takes over here, is as the document is being ingested by the system, it will extract all of the vendor and invoice information, and it will say, hey, GP, can you validate this stuff that I'm thinking here? And also, can you provide more information? And that's where the conversation between the two systems is really important, and that gets to work. And the goal of the whole situation is to make things easier on you. So when you open up an invoice, you'll have the invoice over on the right-hand side, the indexing fields populated on the top there, the GLs on the bottom. You can make this image of the invoice larger or smaller. You can cut and paste from it. You have your indexing fields up here. The data extraction is populated a lot. It uses live GP data as well. So here, if you have multiple companies, you can do a type ahead. If the system will use intelligence and machine learning to figure out what company ID should be here. But if you need to make a change or add that in, that's all using live GP data. We do support GP native intercompany. So if you use that, we support that. We also support binary streams mem. So we could just indicate that here if it is an intercompany scenario. Over here, we have the purchases amount that was extracted from the document. And the fact that that is there means the system had an extremely high confidence level in it. If it had any doubts at all, it wouldn't populate it. That number will always be there and it will always be right. But if somehow the invoice is smudged or it comes through with a character that is unfamiliar to the system, then it will leave it blank. So worst case scenario, that will leave it blank and it will indicate that it's something that needs your attention. Document type, we can work with both invoices and credit memos. Today, we're doing an invoice. The document date was extracted from the incoming document. You can also include a posting date if that's part of your process, or process, as they say in Canada, I guess. You also can modify the document date here if needed. Over here, we have a description. If you do use a description, we can populate that here and it will carry through to GP. I'm putting yes, just so we can see that it does show up in GP when the invoice is in GP. Currency ID, you can default this if you're a single currency, but we also do have support for multi-currency. So if you're US and Canadian dollars, you can fully support that. Over here, we have the vendor ID that was when the information was extracted from the incoming invoice, the system communicated with GP. GP brought that over. I use this as a good example to show the live usage of GP data. So here, the vendor ID will always be there, but if for some strange reason it's not, or you need to change it, you can just start typing in the name of the vendor or the vendor ID, and it will give you all the possibilities straight out of GP. So this is live GP data. And if you keep typing, it will narrow that down and you'll be able to make your selection there. Here we have the document number. I use this document in other demos, so it knows that. It's indicating that this is a duplicate. The system will look both in GP and in quick payables to see if this document number has ever been used. And this number has definitely been used. I've probably used it 4 times today. So for that, I'm going to put today's date just to make it a unique document.
If you've done it 4 times today, I think you should put BH.
And I'll put BH at the end.
Okay.
How about that, Tiffany? Is
Aren't
that
you
okay
glad I'm
now?
here?
Perfect. I like it.
So now that definitely will be a unique document. Here we have the vendor name locked down because a lot of other things require that be the case. We have live access to all the address information where you have primary. If there is a secondary, that will be an option. You have remit to primary if others as well. You have the payment terms. Those came over from the vendor card. If you need to change the terms for this invoice, you can go in and change them for this invoice. If you need to change them for the vendor in general, you'd have to do that in the vendor card. And then for those of you that are familiar with payables transaction entry, you'll see a lot of these screens, fields may exist in your system or they may not. You may have them hidden. So they're available if you do use these as part of your process. They're here. If not, we can provide a version that will have less of these so you can kind of declutter if you want. Go ahead,
And
Tiff.
one good thing to note on this screen, especially just based on, understanding Matt's customer base, Brian's customer base, Matt, is Canadian. So we do support, the tax schedule ID there. So your different taxes can certainly be accounted for as we're bringing in those invoices.
Yep, we certainly do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiff.
Yep.
Okay, so let's head down to the GLs here. The GLs were in the vendor card, so they came over. You can make any changes you need to. You can include a reference if you need to. You can add rows. You can remove rows. Anything you need to do here to get the coding in. We also have the ability to provide the coding functionality for approvers, depending on your workflow and your process. We can accommodate. But these look good. I'm going to come over now to the approval selection, and you have a lot of options here. You can say no approval required if it's something like a utility where you don't require an approval. You could select a person, you can select a department, a location, a group of people, a string of people, lots of options there. They can all be listed as available options in the approver list. You can also set up higher thresholds. So if I was selected as the approver and I have a $5,000 approval threshold, but this is a $6,000 invoice, the invoice will first come to me, I'll approve it, but then the system will automatically send it on to that next approver with the higher level of threshold for the approval. And here I'm selecting myself as the approver, not best practices in the real world, but this way we can keep everything in my demo environment and it's much easier on me. But just to recap, this is an invoice that came in. There's a lot of ways they can come in. The system will automatically grab that PDF and start putting it through these processes, these data extractions and such. The first time you'll see the invoice will be in this queue that we were in earlier. The system actually knows whether it's a purchase order related invoice or a non-PO invoice, and it will put it in the appropriate queue. This was a non-PO invoice, so it did its job and put it in the queue. When we open it up, you have the invoice on the right, indexing fields populated up on top, the GLs on the bottom, and figuring out what you want to do with the approval in the middle. And then to bring it into approval world, you just press submit. And approvers have two different end user experiences to choose from. They can come into the system and approve here with all of the information needed and the image of the document, but you also can do this on a smartphone or your email, and I'll show you that user experience after this. So here we have the invoice we're working on. That's the description we just put in, and we modified the document number. You won't have to do that, but wanted to show you the duplicate alert there. So here we can go in and look at the GLs. I got to do this. There's the invoice. We can look at the GLs. And as I said, if you want to have the approvers possibly modify or enter GLs, they can have that full functionality that was seen in the indexing process. This demo is just not set up that way. And truthfully, not many companies do that. But if needed, we can do that. Here you have options to approve, reject, or delegate. If you approve an invoice, it can just go right into the work queue in GP, which I'll show you in a second. You don't have to put in workflow comments, but you can. If you reject an invoice, it's going to go back to AP. So you're going to have to put in workflow comments to tell AP what's going on. And you can also delegate. If you have a more decentralized approach, we certainly have options for that. If you have invoices starting off with the approvers and then coming into a centralized AP group, things like that, that's what discovery calls are for. We'd love to hear all about it, and we can accommodate a lot of different processes like that. But this demo is basically how the majority of Quick Payables customers use the system. Here you also have workflow history, so you can see who had the document, what they did with it, when, all of that. I'm going to approve it, take the happy path, and say okay. And as we were talking, an email came in, and it's this email here. Again, this works really well on a smartphone. They have a PDF image of the invoice. They can click on that and view it right on their phone. You have all of the information, including the description we entered and the document number that we extended. We have the GL codes, and at the bottom, we have buttons to approve or reject. If you approve, it marks it as approved in the system and is waiting for you in the work queue in GP, which I'll show you in a second. If you reject, you have to put in workflow comments because it's going to go back to AP and you want to tell them why you rejected it. But no action needed on this one. I already approved it. In this demo, we have something called the payables invoice final. Only about 10% of our customers use this. And this is where your process dictates that it's best for AP to look at the invoice one more time before it goes into the work queue in GP. And the reason why some companies do this is if their approvers modify GLs or put in a lot of workflow comments, things like that, then the AP team may want to see it. So we can set this up with this step or without it, either way. But here, this all looks good. We'll submit. And with that, we're heading over to GP. And this is a non-PO invoice, so we're going to transaction entry. And this is where we're going to see quick payables for the first time in GP here. Quick tag functionality is in up to 80 different transactions within GP, where you can attach documents to those transactions. You can search for documents from those transactions in GP. You can view the document right there. Really, really powerful right from the ERP itself. And the documents are actually all stored in our cloud, so they don't take up resources. But here's our functionality from tag documents down. Tag documents means I want to attach a document to this transaction. You won't have to in this case because the workflow takes care of that for you. View documents means I want to view documents that have been previously attached. Search documents is that search functionality right out of GP. You can search for by keywords, document numbers, things like that. And then we have view the work queue. The work queue is where all of the approved or submitted invoices will come. So whether there's just a few like this, or there's hundreds of them, you can select all and bring them all over at once, or you can be a little more selective and just choose which ones you want to, whatever your batch management is. So all you have to do to bring over hundreds of documents, invoices, or just a few, you just drop them in a batch. So you can create a new batch on the fly or just choose an existing batch. And that's in GP. So whether it's 1 or 10 or 100, they just go right over. We'll come over to the voucher, go to that batch. And here's the invoice that we worked. There's the date that was extracted from the document and your team didn't have to populate. There's the description that we did put in. The vendor ID, we told that story. It was the communication between the systems. All of the vendor name and all of the address. Sorry about that. I probably should have silenced that. All of the address information, the payment terms, the document number, amounts. The distributions came through, and there's the BH reference that we put in. And now when you go to the additional menu and say view documents, it pulls up the invoice, and you didn't have to do anything to attach it there. And again, that's stored in the QuickTag cloud, although you'd believe that it was in GP itself, but it's not, which is good. So that is the non-PO workflow.
Why don't we show the purchase order invoice as well? I think we can get through that one pretty quick, right?
Yep, that's a pretty quick process. So
awesome.
Let me come over here and, enter match index. And we'll come over here. I'm going to filter because there's a bunch of them in here. I'm going to filter to some that I've sent in. And again, this is an invoice that we have not seen yet, but there's all this information is already here, which is awesome. Stuff that we don't have to populate. To open the invoice, you come over to the little pencil, and we're going to get a duplicates warning. Shut that down. And here we have the indexing fields on the top, the purchase line, invoice line information here, where you can see the three-way match, and the tax summary down on the bottom. So like before, information in the indexing fields is populated for us. I want to do here Tiffany and BH, so I
I
can
like it.
make everybody happy here. Again, you won't have to do that to the document number. I just do that to avoid the duplicate alert. The invoice date was extracted from the invoice. Here we have freight that was extracted. Taxes came over, tax schedule ID came over, have all that information. And now you have an approver still, but it's for most of our customers in a three-way match scenario like enter match, the approver generally is not required, but it's here. If you want to have an approver, if there's something a little weird about this one and you want to make sure it's okay, you can select an approver, and that approval process is just like before. But because here we can have full visibility that we ordered 200, we received 200, and we were invoiced 200, generally people don't require an approval at that point. If there's any PO detail missing, you can come over to PO search, and that opens up all the open PO lines for that vendor. And you can make selections if something's missing there. Pretty cool stuff. Down below, you have full visibility of all the taxes and can make any necessary changes if required. So again, this is an invoice that came in. The system knew that it had a purchase order number listed on the purchase order. It put it in this work queue. It gathered all the information, presented it here for you, made life easy. And now we can just say submit. And because we don't have an approval process for this one, we can just head right over to GP. And this time we're going to enter match. And again, we're in the additional menu from tag documents down. We're heading to the work queue. And these are all of the all of the three-way match invoices that were submitted. And we see Tiffany and BH there. We can select multiple or just one or select all. And again, just have to drop it in a batch. We're going to put this in enter match. And it's in. We'll come over here to the batch ID, pull it up, pull up the invoice. And here we go. Like before, everything's populated, except this time the GLs did not come from the vendor card. They came from the purchase order. And now when we go to the additional menu and we say view documents, you don't just have the invoice. You have the invoice, the receivings transaction, the purchase order, all here. And it's really nice for auditing. When you have an auditor in, you don't have to go searching for all these documents. They're all just right there attached. And you can give them an auditor key for view only if you choose. But that's the three-way match or enter match workflow there.
That's great, Matt. A quick question for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that if the OCR reads a PO number, it puts it into the PO queue or index. But let's say it's not in the queue in your screen. Can you move it then from the PO back to the AP?
That's a great question. Yes, you can. So here you have change workflow. So if you have something that came into the payables invoice index and you notice that, hey, this is in the non-PO work queue, but I need to change it to the enter match or shipment invoice queue, you can just come right here and do that way. Great question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because sometimes vendors forget to put the number in or something like that. Or
yep. So here, basically, you can just populate it when you open this up. You could put in the PO number and then change the workflow. So it just brings it right over to the other workflow. Great question.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Love it. Obviously, we walked through non-PO as well as that three-way match, but I think you just heard Matt also mention we do the two-way match as well. So, happy to support, a multitude of versions that you may be running with Dynamics GP.
Yep. And this might not have been the exact order of your process and things like that. That's why we do discovery calls and get on a call for demos where we ask those questions and can help you picture using this with your processes.
Perfect. One of the things I wanted to highlight here is, why automation. It is reported 84% of an AP's day is cluttered with manual clerical tasks, and payment automation, what you've just seen Matt demonstrate, is saving people 16 to 18 hours per week on average. So a tremendous amount of value and benefit that you can deliver to the team by leveraging an AI-powered tool fully integrated to your Dynamics GP environment. So hopefully you saw some of the value there with what Matt has highlighted. Just as a recap, we do leverage a smarter integrated AI to ensure that we can understand exactly what's happening in your Dynamics GP environment, retrieve information, match information there, obviously. We want to leverage an automated process to ensure the appropriate eyes are seeing that invoice. And if you'll recall, Matt did mention that we've got unlimited users here. So whomever that needs to have an eyes on that invoice is going to be able to see that. Absolutely. They don't have to have a GP license in order to be able to see any of the invoices through our solution. Affordability, great conversation that we can pick up and have with yourself and Brian, absolutely. But the way that our tool works is it is unlimited users. It's only based on your invoice volume, so we can quickly determine, what your cost would be. But also, we've been doing this a really long time, and our application is configurable. It's so configurable that it can certainly be customized to meet your unique needs. But we do not charge any implementation fees here. So, we've been doing this a long time. We kind of know what to expect. And with the configuration element of the application, it really does reduce your exposure in terms of committing to a new piece of software integrated into GP with zero implementation fees. That configurable nature also, gives tremendous value in terms of how quickly we can get you up and running. We traditionally see our GP customers processing invoices within 30 days. Honestly, we can go even faster than that, but we know you've got a day job, and we're just trying to get ourselves into your schedule to make sure we've got it configured unique to your requirements. The last one that we love to highlight here is ease of use. I hope that you felt that way after what you've seen Matt demonstrate for you today. But one of the things that our team did here is we really wanted to replicate some familiarity from what you're experiencing in Dynamics GP today. So obviously what you saw there is we're mirroring a lot of the fields that you're very familiar with and comfortable with within that payable transaction entry window. To ensure that your team can easily be onboarded and start processing invoices as rapidly as possible. Once you start implementing, obviously we're talking about hours that you're saving, but we do see 82% of the companies that are leveraging automation see noticeable improvement. And we've got some great customer examples that highlight just that for you. This first one here is American Software. This is a customer of ours that came to us through COVID. Honestly, they had looked at our solution for probably 2 years in advance of COVID. And then when COVID hit, they called and said, we need help, and we need help absolutely right now. They have multiple entities within American Software. They're a software organization that's really grown by leaps and bounds with acquisition. So they were constantly acquiring new companies, leveraging binary stream multi-entity management. So it was key that they had an invoice automation solution that could support all those companies. And what they were able to do was eliminate all the paper immediately. They actually removed the printers, definitely, for their finance team. Their centralized finance team was on one floor in their central location and their headquarters, and they actually took the printer out completely. So they removed all paper, and they also eliminated 90% of the steps that they were going through at that point, some of which included interoffice mail and even overnighting invoices to other offices for review and approval. So really painful, time-consuming, and expensive. So as you can imagine, when you eliminate 90% of the steps that you have, they were starting to process invoices on average 80 to 90% faster. So invoices went from being approved maybe in a week to 10 days to minutes. And with that, they were able to calculate exactly what that savings meant to them. When you're eliminating that many steps and you're saving that much time for the AP team, they actually redeployed one of their resources to another department within the organization. This gal had, aspirations of really just, moving up through the organization. And this let her leave that team behind with full confidence, knowing that they had the right system in place to continue to be as effective as possible. And what that equated to was over $100,000 in savings for the finance group. That year, they won an Operational Excellence Award for the fact that they were able to, put into place such a valuable tool and resource, not just for finance, but also for the business. The business was often kind of bad-mouthing or a little bit of trash talking was going on in terms of, why are my vendors not being paid on time? I'm seeing delays in shipments. So finance was really feeling the brunt of that. And what this did was obviously extend a tremendous amount of visibility across the organization, ensuring those invoices were being paid timely. So bravo to American Software for sure. The next one I want to highlight is smaller organization, and this is it's an airport. It's Punta Gorda Airport, and a fabulous group of people, but much smaller organization. They're probably processing under 500 invoices per month. But they had some significant pain points and challenges that management was keen on eliminating. They knew that AP automation and AI was the direction that they had to go. They constantly had lost invoices. They were paying late fees from their vendors. And they really had an edict that they needed to be able to define and see the audit trail. Who was reviewing and approving these invoices? I don't know if there was a piece of fraud in there that really pushed them to go that direction, but that was one of their key drivers behind selecting our solution. And this is great. We recently met up with Tammy Harper at an event, and she highlighted for us, we've got her on video. It's kind of fun. She's like, hey, the implementation process was super smooth. And for them, she's like, I can't even believe this. We've saved a forest by eliminating all the paper within our organization. So tremendous value that can be extended, and you never know. We don't know what those pain points may be for you. So let's start those conversations to see how we can help mitigate some of the challenges you may be having in your AP process today. All right, Brian, you're back up here because what we wanted to wrap things up with some of the misconceptions that are in the space. For both Dynamics GP and AP automation or artificial intelligence. It's a crazy buzzword this year. So I'm happy to weigh in on those if you want to tackle some that are in the GP space today.
Yeah, thanks, Tiff. And I think, the misconception, as you said, that GP is going away is it's in the roadmap still for the next 5 years to 2028 and beyond for support. After that, we don't know what's going to happen, but we're assuming there's more life that'll come from it. In recent, blogs and things I've read and heard, there's probably 25 to 30,000 customers in North America still using GP. So we're not going to convert those to another system in 5 years. It's just not going to happen. So, Microsoft has to do something to continue the extended support. Companies like myself and my company is, we're here for the long haul as well to help those customers upgrade and get onto the latest versions, help leverage the tools and technology so they don't have to move right away. At the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaway for some of our customers is to get into the modern life cycle. That then extends your life into that 2028 and beyond. And I think we have one or two that are still on 2013 and 2015. So we've got to get them to the modern life cycle and then they'll get that additional support. And they're still doing improvements. I'm still surprised to see hundreds plus of new features as you upgrade from 18.2 to 3 to 18.4 to 5 to 6 and so on. So they're still enhancing the product, which is great. And I think that's still a positive for the GP user base.
I think it is too. And honestly, when we get to come together as a community a few times a year with different Microsoft events, and I really love to participate in any of the GP sessions in terms of the community and what their wants and needs are. And since 2020, there's been 100 new features that have been released, and they are being released because customers are asking for them. So, if you're on GP to stay, Brian's here to support you. Paymerang is here to support you as well. That's the largest portion of our customer base here. We're not going anywhere. So if you're finding challenges in GP, speak up. voice those concerns and wants, because they definitely are leveraging, those users for input and feedback in terms of the releases and the updates that they're putting in. One of the other misconceptions out there is around affordability. And it's funny, Matt and I started we started here 6 years ago on the same exact date. So kind of fun. But when we started here, you would be shocked if I told you what the average cost was to deploy an AP automation solution. Honestly, you couldn't get it done for less than about $32,000. And that was the norm. I've been in this space for over 15 years. I've been selling automation, AP automation in Dynamics GP for over 15 years. And if a Punta Gorda example of 500 invoices, I'd say, okay, good luck. I'm not sure the ROI is going to pencil out for you. But the reality is that there have been huge advancements in technology that's allowed us to drive the cost down. And with us, one thing that we want to ensure that we do for the Dynamics GP customer base is ensure that as you invest in new technology, that you don't have, this hefty implementation cost. We charge only based on the number of invoices that you are using, with zero implementation fee. And we're able to leverage artificial intelligence to, automate some of our processes and streamline the product to really drive that cost down. So if you thought you couldn't afford it, tap Brian. He needs one element from you and he can give you an idea of exactly what the cost would be. And that's what your invoice volume is, monthly or, annually. If you share that, we can very quickly ascertain exactly what you can expect to pay. The last one is AI going to replace my job? And it's definitely, I don't believe that it will. I love this topic. I think it's a super fun one. I think what we need to do is ensure that we're leveraging AI to work smarter versus harder. And what we're seeing is it's really allowing finance teams to really elevate their roles within the organization. Instead of you spending 16 to 18 hours working on very manual tasks that honestly quite often drive to a lot of unsatisfaction within an employee, you're going to be able to focus on more strategic initiatives for the organization. You're going to have insight into these vendors. You're going to be able to orchestrate better discounts. You're going to be able to take advantage of early pay discounts. So leverage the AI to ensure that you're, just advancing with the technology and the times, seamlessly integrated to your GP environment, and make better decisions for your team. That's what we think you can anticipate to see as you leverage AI going forward. I know Brian probably has a few other takes on what other areas of your business you can use AI in, especially in GP, that I hope mirror some of that, elevating your work. But that's my take on the AP side of it for sure. So now we'll just open it up to questions. I can't see the chat panel there. I'll move it over here. Any questions that you may have, feel free to pop them in the chat window.
Yeah, nothing yet.
Tiffany, one comment about your estimate of possibly $32,000 for invoice automation back when we first started. That was without the data extraction as well.
That's true. That was without AI.
Data extraction would have added another $20,000+ to that.
Good point.
And now the data extraction comes standard with the offering. So
it's included. Absolutely. Well, Matt, I saw one pop in here, invoice and payments. So I did mention we do have invoice and payments. What you saw today was invoice automation. We do offer payment automation as well. You can have one or the other. We like to say around here, better together. So if you're going to automate the invoice process, we're certainly happy to automate the payment process, get your vendors paid in the manner in which they prefer. So that can be either virtual card, that can be ACH or check, but you don't have to do both. You can do one or the other. Absolutely. And then just one other question here. I think we might have touched on this, but just to clarify again, on-premise support. So our product is traditionally sold as a cloud solution, and it can integrate with both GP in the cloud or GP on-premise. So either or. And I will say we don't do it often, probably less than 2% these days. If you have requirements or needs, some of our customers are government customers and they have to have an on-prem solution, we can support that as well. So meaning you can purchase our solution on premise and obviously can continue to connect to your on-prem Dynamics GP environment.
Perfect, Tiff. And you mentioned, I think it was you or Matt, that it integrates with the binary streams multi-entity management.
Absolutely.
Is a highlight, right? And then how about with the analytical accounting module that's within GP?
Absolutely. We have full support for analytical accounting as well.
Yeah, perfect. That's good to know.
Love
Yeah,
it.
as I'm doing some more implementations or working with companies, you know, it's all about getting more data in a different way or a faster way and trying to create new jail accounts for projects or employees or things that are really those analytical codes. It's really good to push it into that module. And then, but you need a tool like this to be able to tag that at the invoice level. So that's great. That's fully integrated with AA. Perfect.
Yeah, that's one thing that we're super proud about. I mean, we've been around in the space for a long time. It's an extremely mature product with deep integrations to your Dynamics GP environment. I will say we can't support every single add-on, but that is a great reason to continue to have the conversations with Brian about what's available.
I'll put you on the spot with another one.
Oh, go for it.
What about key to act for job costing and cost?
Oh, I'm interested. Matt, are you going to answer this one or am I?
I'm leaving this one to you, Tiffany.
Okay. We supported job costs for many, many years. We unfortunately have sunset support for that application at this time. So we used to in the past, no longer anymore.
Okay, no problem.
So again, not every ISV solution, but a lot.
That's why you have to do discovery calls.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure, Brian. We really appreciate you having us on today, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with any of your customers as needed. We appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. It was good, informative, and I hope the audience got some good insights. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and or Tiffany, and we'll go from there. Happy to help.
And if anybody would like an individual demo where we'll go over your processes and be able to speak with you specifically on that, we would love to do that.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.
Ditto. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.